don't fear all-time highs. I think it's human nature, and this is why this question is popping up. The market's been good. We've seen a little bit of volatility, but it keeps coming back.
Yep.
And we're all out at all-time highs, so it's just natural to think there's got to be something right around the corner.
All thoughts and opinions shared in this recording belong to the participants. This podcast is meant to inform and educate and should not be seen as solicitation or endorsement for business.
Welcome to the Market Moment. This is Matt here today with John. How we doing?
Excellent.
You good?
Everything's great. All good. Spring is in the air. Life is good.
Yeah.
Storms, dodging lightning bolts. Other than that, life is good.
It's like every other day there's a tornado watch or tornado warning.
I know. It's just the life in Arkansas.
Yeah.
We're lucky. I mean, you see, it seems like it misses us north, south, but man, there's parts of this country getting hammered with this stuff. And we're kind of right in the middle of it, but not.
Which we got hit,
Oh, we did, a couple of years ago for sure. And you had a tornado go over your house a couple
There was one close.
weeks ago.
So it is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Gotta love it with little kids at the house. So it's like you look at the weather. The crazy thing is now the last thing I look at before I go to bed is the weather, because then it's like, am I gonna sleep through the night or am I gonna wake up with children?
Three kids on top. Yeah.
So, anyways, all right. So today we want to jump into a common question that we've seen trending. A lot of people asking about, searching for it. So I thought it'd be good to address it. Zoe helps us put these together and find these. So that's super helpful. But, a lot of people looking at, should I delay retirement in 2026 due to recent market volatility and sequence of returns risk? So I think it's a really good question. There's a lot kind of to unpack there, and a lot of different things to consider, a lot of different things you can do, different approaches, things to manage around, and risks to, make sure that you have under control. But it's a really good question. And I do think it's kind of funny, because there has been some volatility, but we're at like all-time highs.
Right.
It's not like
it's
not like this is a question that's trending when we're like down 20 or 30%. We're right around all-time highs, if not at all-time highs, depending on the index. And you already have people like looking at this.
It's the best, scariest market we've ever had.
Yeah. It's a good, well said. So when you think, if someone asks you, it's like, John, should I delay my retirement because of everything going on? And how, if I'm worried about sequence of returns risk. Well, let me start there. Let me define we've talked about this in the past, but let me take a step back and then I'll hand it off to you. So sequence of returns risk is, right, as you get to the point or closer to the point of needing income from your portfolio. So you're not in the accumulation saving stage. You're starting to, or you're close to, or already in needing to pull money out for income. The returns really start to matter in the sequence of those returns, right? And so if you have a huge negative year or multiple negative years at the very beginning of retirement, that is much more impactful than if it happens later in retirement,
Right.
All things else consistent, So that's what people are talking about, sequence of returns risk. Like, hey, I don't want to go through a major market event or major downturn right at around the point of my retirement, because it can have a huge impact on the longevity of my assets and things like that. So that's what sequence of return risk is not you can average the same return over 30 years, but when you're in retirement taking income out, the average is not what's most important. It's the timing of those returns, right? In what order are they coming? And so if someone's worried about that and their plan was to retire this year, next year, should they delay retirement, or what should they be thinking about when they're, looking at the risks?
So it's the age-old question that we have no answer to, and I hate to sound like that because we have no idea what the future holds, right? You can sit here and predict, and if you watch TV or read any articles or whatever, you're going to see a lot of negativity. And you can find it, right? You can find that, hey, we're at the top. It's going to sell off. We're, this Iran war, the oil, the inflation, the Fed. You can go on and on and on and on. And there's always something you can find that scares people into thinking that this is the end. The way I look at this sequence of return topic, and 2008, I was in the business, and that is the only time in my career that this really did happen to clients, right? They retired in 2007, 2008. The market went down from top to bottom 54%. And so that type of major, not correction, recession can really mess you up in retirement. Because think of it like this: if you make math easy, you have $1 million, you're drawing $50,000 a year out because that's 5%, right? Mm-hmm. And the market falls 50%, and now you have 500,000, and you're drawing 50,000. You're drawing now 10%, which now goes way against all of the rule books of financial plan. Even though you started it correctly, 5% for life, but you had that massive event,
right?
That now you're behind, and that's the sequence of events fear, right? So there's a couple ways to avoid that. Number one, we have buckets of money, and you're going to talk about that, like buckets of money where you can draw from and how you can avoid. So if something does go down, you can let that heal while you're drawing from somewhere else. So make sure you have buckets of money. If you're doing proper planning, you should not take the entire risk of the market. That's the most important thing, right?
Yeah. Like if you're 65 and retiring, it's probably not, and you're about to need to start taking income, you probably shouldn't be 100% equities.
Right.
And if the market's down 50, hopefully you're not down the full 50.
We touch on these things on this podcast and like go in circles on some of the stuff we say, because this will talk about stuff we talked about before. But yeah, you're at the height of the market right now, right? We're at all-time highs, and every time we dip, we seem to fight back. But what a great opportunity to reevaluate. So if you're out there listening and you don't have a financial advisor and you're close to retirement, this might be the perfect time to think about doing that and doing a plan, an actual proper plan, and understanding your required need of return.
Yeah.
And make sure you're not taking too much risk. I think that's one of the biggest concerns I see with clients coming in is they're taking more risk than even they want to take. They've just been doing it for so long, their 401ks and whatever. The market has just skyrocketed, so everybody's won since 2009, and we get complacent, and that's how it is, when it's not how it is. So this is a good time to reevaluate that and just make sure your buckets are right and your allocation is right, and then sequence of returns you can actually use it to your advantage.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It can turn into a positive when we see a market pullback. If you have a source of capital, a bucket that you can pull money from when the market's down. So, funding those buckets just gives you the flexibility, because what you don't want to be is caught in a position where I need income, everything that I have is down, and I'm forced to sell or liquidate or pull money out when the market is down. So now this is extremely dependent on your situation, right?
Sure.
Some people have a lot more flexibility in what they're drawing from their portfolio because it's more discretionary and maybe they have income coming from somewhere else. But if you're heavily dependent on your portfolio, you need to have buckets and accounts, so many different ways that you can do it, right? And have a place that you can pull money from. And then you need to rebalance periodically. If the market's ripping at an all-time high, replenish your income bucket, right?
Yeah.
If the market's down, utilize your income bucket, draw it down to maybe lower than you would normally, so that you're not having to touch your growth bucket.
Right.
So that's a big thing, I think, is with proper planning. Every situation is different, and we can't sit here and talk to every situation and say, hey, this applies to everyone out there. But I would say if you've done the proper planning, if you're invested appropriately, there should be no need to delay retirement just because we're sitting here at all-time highs and we're worried about, what if the market sells off now and the market has a huge negative year early in my retirement. Well, if you have money that doesn't apply to, then that's maybe perfectly fine. And this chart that I want to throw up here real quick is, just a chart about, don't fear all-time highs. I think it's human nature. And this is why this question is popping up. The market's been good. We've seen a little bit of volatility, but it keeps coming back. And we're all at all-time highs. So it's just natural to think there's got to be something right around the corner. And that may or may not be true, right?
Right. We have no idea.
But this chart does a good job, I think, of just illustrating, hey, investing at all-time highs, like if you had new money you were going to be putting in the market right now, the market actually has done better on the 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year forward returns than if you invested at any other point. Is that not wild?
You wouldn't predict
No, it's
that.
marginal. It's little, but it just
still,
it kind of removes that fear of like, okay, if I invest or if we're at all-time highs, I don't need to be worried that historically the market is, down a large percent of the time moving forward. That's not true.
No,
so,
it's momentum based, a lot of it, right? And we don't know when that end is going to be. How many all-time highs have we hit in the last 10 years? And it continues, like we were talking about, it goes down a little bit, then it fights right back, gets an all-time high. Goes down a little bit, fights back, gets an all-time high. So this ride, if you try to decide when perfect timing to get in, it's really a fool's errand, right? You're not going to understand that. I go back to like all of this stuff. Everything matters in what your age is, where your money is invested. So let's say you're 60, you want to retire now, and all of your money is an IRA. And you're going to have to pull from your IRA for the rest of your life because that's the only bucket you filled in. And we have bad returns, right? Now we're talking about taxable money plus bad returns could really thwart your retirement. So there are things. Now, one thing I hear, and we hear a lot of clients tell us, hey, I've heard the golden rule is that, and I've heard different percentages because when I started this business, it was 5% of whatever you had.
Sure.
Now it's down to 4%, and even some people even have it lower. Doing this as long as I've done this, 4%, we can get that, in a bank for, you can, the number that we're told is what we should do. If you're using that number to determine if you can retire or not, in other words, and that matches, then the market volatility shouldn't match you because you should not be taking the market risk, right? If you're expecting to only have to make 5% of your money, reevaluate where your money's positioned.
Right.
If you're in all IRA, if you're 60 and you're retiring, it's too late to change that. You can do some conversions, but you're going to still pay taxes, right? When you're younger, remember that is like, man, the more buckets you have, if you have that tax-free bucket, the taxable bucket, the non-qualified bucket, just your savings account, whatever. If you have all three buckets, the freedom and flexibility that you have at retirement, not only where the money's allocated towards the market, whether it's in stocks, bonds, whatever, but different types of accounts makes a massive difference in your success rate in retirement.
No, it does 100%. So that's a good, segue transition to the next topic. So transitioning from sequence of return risk to kind of tie a bow on that, just have a plan for your particular situation. If you don't need a huge return, and you have some flexibility to make some adjustments within your portfolio depending on where those assets are held, and you can fund the different buckets, then hopefully you don't have to change your retirement plans at all. You just need to change the planning and the investment allocation that you have. Now transitioning to what you were just referencing, which is the different buckets from a taxable, situation, is like how are my assets taxed when I take the money out, and as they're invested. That can have a huge impact on the long-term performance of your portfolio, where you're getting your income, how that income is taxed, asset location, where are we holding the fixed income that we have in our portfolio? Is that in the tax-free, the taxable, or the tax-deferred? Where are we holding the equities? Where are we drawing from? And if, again, to John's point, if you've done the planning and you've funded different buckets and you have assets in different buckets, then in different types of accounts, you have so much more flexibility to manage your tax situation, and do it really well because, we can take money out, max out tax brackets if we need to get some extra income, but we don't want to jump. Now we've got a bucket, an account we can pull from, so much of this is so much easier if you start at 45 or 50 even.
Yes.
Obviously if you start at 30, but
You're
even
great,
if you start at 45 or 50 versus waiting until right before retirement, so much easier to start planning for this and positioning yourself to just have flexibility. Myself, I've always said this, I've told this to clients, this is one reason I kind of hesitate to highly recommend, not that I'm against them or think they're horrible, but I've never been a huge fan of 529 plans. And I've always told clients it's like, because I personally value flexibility over some very marginal tax benefits that you might get. Now that's me. That may not be everybody, but if you want flexibility and you value flexibility and you really want to set yourself up to maximize everything you have from an income and tax perspective, then starting to fund the different accounts and bucketing out your money sooner rather than later can help you in so many different ways. In terms of longevity of assets, what you have to leave to your kids, how tax efficient is your income in retirement. And,
we look at, this is the fun thing about these catchy terms, like Roth conversions is a big catchy term now, right? And everybody's doing Roth conversions. And
right.
so we have people that actually ask us, hey, I want to do a Roth conversion, or I want to know about it. And what's nice is that it is not for everybody, as you know, right? And it depends on tax brackets. It depends on your stage in life, age in life. I mean, your income needs, your tax bracket. Everything matters in determining the smartest way to do things for clients. But I would say, like, if you're out there and you're building assets, Roths. I mean, I love Roths. We both agree. I feel the same way on 529s as you do, right? Restrictive, so on. They've gotten better.
They have gotten better.
But I still don't like them, as much as you'd think we should, right? But Roths I do love, right? Because you have that tax deferred growth and tax-free withdrawal when you get somewhere down the line. I get a lot of questions. Hey, is there any way to avoid taxes on my IRA? Can I gift? Can I put in trust? Can I do all these different things? And there's no way.
Yeah. Being a 0% bracket.
0% bracket would be the only way.
Yeah.
Right. That means you're drawing less than $50,000, whatever that is, with your marital deduction. But yeah, you're very rarely going to avoid taxes, but there is really smart tax planning that can be done if we know all the parameters, everything about you, and that helps determine where you draw from, how you build assets, when you retire, when you can retire. All those kind of things matter. All these things we're talking about today are just go right back to the main term of planning.
Right.
Just have somebody help you figure this all out, because it's not hard. But there's a lot of mistakes.
There are a lot of moving parts and things to consider. So definitely get some help if you don't have anybody that you work with. So hopefully the takeaway here is, if anyone out there is finding themselves in the position of you're the one searching for, should I delay retirement? Hopefully we've answered your question, and like, no, not necessarily. I don't need to change my retirement plans. I just may need to change my financial plan if it's not positioned appropriately. And so, before you start changing everything you've been working towards and this goal of retirement by this age or this date, just sit down with somebody and see if you can change your financial plan so that you don't have to be worried about sequence of returns or, your withdrawal rate or whatever it may be. None of it is overly complicated, but there are so many moving parts that if it's not done well, it can have a dramatic impact, moving forward. And so,
two things I'll say to wrap this up. Two things that I notice a lot when people come in for the first time to see an advisor, right? And I meet them for the first time. Number one, they are, if they're thinking about it and they're in their, 5 to 10 years away from retirement and they've done the right things, right? A lot of them are over worried. In other words, they're worried they can't retire at a certain time. They're worried they don't have enough money. They're worried all these things. And reality is, when we do planning, oftentimes the story ends up better than they thought when they came in.
Right.
But number two, the one thing I've noticed a lot is that when I ask them risk questions and we get into the risk profile part of that conversation, which is so important, and I don't think people understand that part as well as they should, most of the time folks are taking more risk than they should and that they really want to.
Right.
And again, we've been spoiled with an incredible market. So you don't think about that when everything's going up every time you open your statement. You just don't think about how it can ruin your well thought out plan. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I see, is that not that we're not able to retire, not that we're not able to do the things we want, just
taking
are you allocated
unnecessary
right,
risk,
and you're taking maybe too much risk. And those are good things. We love to solve those kind of things.
Yeah,
those are easy to solve.
Absolutely. Well, anything else?
No, this is riveting. I feel like sometimes we talk in circles because this all leads back to the same stuff.
Yeah, it does. But it's hopefully they're good reminders for people out there that are maybe, just uneasy about things. Again, it's human nature. I think all-time highs, the whole thing of what goes up must come down, and you just have all these things running through our head of like, hey, we're at all-time highs. We must be about to have some major pullback. Could be absolutely, what comes to fruition over the next 6-12 months, and it absolutely may not be. So I think just positioning yourself so you're not worried. You're not, dependent on market outcomes, right?
Exactly.
You're positioned for, hey, if this happens, we'll make these adjustments and we're good. If this doesn't happen, we'll make these adjustments and we're good. And you just know that I've got levers I can pull, because you don't want to be completely dependent on what the market's going to do in the next year or two.
Right.
And that is completely controlling your entire financial life. I mean, that's a bad spot to be.
It is a bad spot to be. And you get conflicting news all the time. That's why I say it's the most pessimistic bull market we've ever been on, because the news is rapid and it's all dramatic and everything is going to be the end of this and end of that every time something happens.
Well, good conversation. As always, we appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to give us a like, subscribe. Send us any questions or emails. If there's something that you're worried about personally, leave in a comment, shoot us an email. We'd love to see that and talk through it on one of the upcoming shows. But we appreciate you guys listening and watching. We'll see you guys next week.
The hosts of the Market Moment podcast are employees of Mach 1 Financial Group, LLC. Mach 1 is a registered investment advisor located in Rogers, Arkansas. A copy of Mach 1's current written disclosure brochure is available through the SEC website and available at disclosures.mach1fg.com.